This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and we're going to talk a little bit today about, well, kind of like how we're motivated, but it's not necessarily the same as the idea of being motivated away compared to motivated towards, which is basically whether we pay attention to the pain that we're moving away from or the pleasure that we're moving toward, right? The powerful thing, by the way, with that is the ability to build both. So not just what we're avoiding and what we're getting away from, but what we're actually moving towards. And being able to put those two things together is absolutely crucial for really moving forward towards goals or things that we truly, really want to have in our life. So, motivation towards, motivation away, a little bit different to the topic that I want to talk about today, which is, do we do things out of necessity or do we do things out of possibility? And so, one of the powerful things here around, it's somewhat to do with self-awareness. The more of these programs and thinking patterns that we can, and Enneagram topologies that we can truly understand, the better we are about understanding ourselves. Not just understanding those around us. That's a bonus and it's useful, but it's really about understanding ourselves. And so this crucial ability to be able to know that whether we make decisions, especially about our future and things that we want, out of necessity, like do we wait until everything's so fucking painful, there's a tipping point, and then we make a decision? Or do we look at things and go, man, that's how it could be. And because of how it could be, we start to really go forwards towards that, and we start to move towards possibility. Now, when both of these are done to their extremes, it's bad. Right, the ability is to be able to see both, but to be able to lean into both. And so, when we make decisions out of necessity at an extreme, it means that everything's falling apart. We're fucking homeless. We have absolutely no money, and that's where people start to move into things like stealing or all sorts of other potential illegal behavior. But the thing about it, the other side of it, even though taking possibility to a strength sounds like a really good opportunity, but if we take possibility to the extreme, it means we can never actually stay put somewhere. We're constantly looking at the next thing and then the possibilities and then jumping. Imagine that in a relationship. If we're always looking at possibility potentially in a partner, then what ends up happening is that we constantly keep moving on. Whereas if we look at necessity, it's like we will stay here even if we don't want to be here until we 100% have to leave the relationship. So both at extremes can be effectively quite negative. The ability to be able to really be aware of ourselves and what our default may be, and that might be leaning into, well, when things start to get uncomfortable and I start to look at possibilities, or are you in a comfortable space and ability to actually see possibilities and move towards them, but only act upon what's necessary. And so if we actually pay attention to going, let's write down goals, and let's start seeing the things that we truly want, and see what sort of comes up for us. Especially like you look for the emotional connection in the gut. If we look at something and there's an emotional connection to it, if you're reading something and there's like an emotional connection in the gut to it, that's often telling us that there's something important in that, right? And so if we're writing out a goal and we're like, yeah, logically I want that, but emotionally you're not on board, like, then forget about it. But then you look at the motivation away, you're like, what happens if you don't get that? And you're like, well, fuck, I stay here. And what does that mean? Well, if I stay here, it means that I'm going to lose my job because I'm going to go crazy. I'm probably going to fucking lose my life. Like, I can't be able to do that. And all of a sudden, what I was going to move towards looks way more appealing, because what I've actually done is looked at where I am and what that means to stay where I am, because we never stay put in the same spot, right? We can't stay put. The world is continually evolving and changing. And so the ability to try and stay put is, at some point you will have to move, and it will be out of necessity, right? Rather than possibility. And so one of the most beneficial things to do in this space is to truly connect, yes, a deeper why to what it is you want to get out of your life, right? Now, that could be in a short term, it could be in a longer term, it could be either or, but to truly understand why something is important to you. Now, some of the languages you'll hear from possibility compared to necessity, the possibility language will often you'll hear is more so imagine, I can't wait, it'll be very future orientated, it'll be best case scenario a lot of the time, optimism. And so to be able to look at this possibility and keep that optimism is beautiful, but if we don't carry a certain level of cynicism or worst case scenario or pessimism to it, then what ends up happening is that it gets taken way to the extreme, and you become way too active, and you never have any sort of sound sort of ground to be able to build your life on. And so the opposite of that, language that speaks to more necessity, is such as like, obviously a lot of the negatives. And when I say negatives, I don't mean bad. I mean negative as in I don't want to do that. I can't be bothered. I don't know what I want. These sorts of like, I know I don't want that, right? These sorts of things give us an indication of somebody who's more inclined to wait until things are really bad before they start doing something about it, right? And so the interesting thing that, as you're reflecting on this, that might be useful for you is to go, well, this is contextual. So there are some contexts that we do it, and there are other contexts where we do the other one. Now, that having flexibility within this thinking pattern is really useful for us to be able to go, well, I'm not just going to move in my relationship out of possibility, but maybe in my job, I should use a little bit of possibility because I'm not really enjoying my job. And I spend 40 hours a week here and 2 hours a day commuting. So there's another 10 hours, right? So 50 hours. And I think about it, another 2 hours almost each day outside of it. So there's another 10 hours. So 60 hours of my life is devoted to thinking and doing a job. And all of a sudden, I actually don't love it. I don't enjoy it, right? Maybe I don't have to love it, but maybe I should be enjoying it somewhat. And I don't do that. And so we start to see, well, maybe what would be another option? What's something else that I could enjoy, right? And so this is now possibility questioning to find out what possibilities could arise without having to be committed to the answers, right? And so the beautiful thing about that is that there's also the flip of it. And so if we're constantly in the possibility thinking, it's like, well, what would it mean if I just stayed where I am for another 2 years, right? What would that mean for me? What would I get out of it? Is jumping around a pattern for me? What is the common theme that motivates me to jump around in relationships, in jobs, in homes? Is this a consistent theme? Do I want to continue doing that in my 30s and 40s and 50s? And we start to be able to see these things where we start to really mismatch and critically think about the positive intention and about where the possibility thinking and, more important, behaving really comes from. And so when we're able to do that, what we're doing is that we're starting to really question the possibility and what could be valid about staying put or going, where do I want to set up shop, and not knowing that I'm not tied to having to be there, but at least that way I've got a foundation I can build on. I'm not just a jack of all trades and a master of none, and more often than not, a lot of people are not even a jack of all those trades. They're often a jack of no trade than a master of none. But the beautiful thing is being able to still have some flexibility, but to know where you're grounding yourself. Whereas the other one is to have you grounding yourself and constantly be in a possible space. What kind of life could I have? What kind of home could I build for my family? What kind of body could I have if I put a year's worth of attention to it, right? What kind of health and happiness could I have on a holiday if I started to prioritize more of that rather than work? Because, and I'm going to finish off with this, we know this, but I'm going to repeat it for you. Work doesn't fucking matter, right? Your life's work matters, but work on the greater scale, it doesn't fucking matter. Right? What matters is the memories you make and how you contribute. And so at the end of the day, and I'm talking about the end of the day, of course, when you go to work tomorrow and you're either working on real estate or you're working on legislation or you're working on getting some rules passed in whatever thing that you do at your job, of course that matters there in the moment. But in the long run, when you're 60 or 70 or 80, right, and you're looking back on the work you did today, are you going to remember it? Is anyone going to remember it? Are people going to be proud of it? Are you going to be proud of it? So just make sure that when you're making decisions on how you're going to impact your life and the life of the people watching you and the generations below you and the people around you. Because when you play small, you encourage other people to play small. When you play large, you encourage other people to play large. But when you play true to yourself, you stop taking bullshit. You stop taking anyone else's bullshit, but before that, you stop taking yours. And that's the most crucial thing. Team, on that note, I'm done. If you found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already, then jump on Facebook, search Mood Prep Online, find me on Instagram at DDNix. I share a summary of these podcasts every single day. Otherwise, team, that's it. I'm done. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, and make sure you slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.